Justice Lambert has returned to her seat. Smith and Brookhill are back in the dock. The jury have returned to their seats and the case can now resume from the afternoon session. Video footage is now set to be played to the court of CCTV from the recycling plant where Brookhill worked on September the 13th, 2020, where she took Star to work with her in her car. The recycling plant is Eco Power Environmental in Bankwood Lane, New Rosington, Doncaster. Footage shows Brookhill and Star sat in Brookhill's car. Mr. McDonald says the Crown puts forward that in the footage a slap is delivered by Brookhill to Star. A second clip shows Star falling out of the vehicle, he says, before being picked up and put on the knee of Brookhill. The third clip, Mr. McDonald says, shows Brookhill raising Star's head by the chin before slapping her, and then slapping her again, causing Star's head to jolt forward. A fourth video is now being played to the court, with Star now in the back of the car. He says that Brookhill is feeding Star with a bottle, pushing her head further and further back, after which Brookhill slaps her across her left cheek. The next clip is from a minute later. Mr. McDonald said it shows more bottle feeding, and as Brookhill pulls the bottle away, she slaps Star with the back of her hand before moving her hands towards the toddler's face again. Now a fifth video is being played, which the prosecution says show a jab and punch by Brookhill, who then lifts Star back up. A sixth clip from 2 minutes later now, which shows Star being struck again before being slapped with the back of Brookhill's hand again. Brookhill then kneels on her seat and pins Star against her seat by her neck before releasing her, which causes her to jolt back down. Another video from 5 minutes later is now being shown to the court, which Mr. McDonald says Star is struck with a punch by Brookhill. Now a video from 15 minutes later, the Crown say this depicts Brookhill punch Star with her right hand with considerable force, causing Star to slump forward before talking to her and punching her again, before again talking to her and delivering more punches to the abdomen. Brookhill then drives away. This is a total of 21 blows to Star in that evening. Brookhill after that night then made efforts to get her vehicle cleaned. The last clip was just before 9 p.m. Just after 9 p.m, Brookhill then searches on the internet what happens when you get winded, what happens to the body when it isn't getting enough oxygen, and another what happens to tissue when it doesn't get enough oxygen, and another search reading can you die from being winded, and other similar ones. The cause for these searches, we say, is blindly obvious. This was not the first time she had made these searches. When Star had the bruises on her cheeks, Brookhill was searching, what taking bruises away easily. The bruising on her right cheeks was entirely typical of hard slaps. Mr. Johnson said after analysing those photos, we have evidence of Brookhill inflicting injuries on Star and making searches abundantly clear she was the one inflicting those injuries. This is clear to us it was Brookhill striking Star repeatedly over the head. More video now from Frankie Smith from Bradford City Centre in Kirkgate and Piccadilly from September the 20th, 2 days before Star died. Star is in a child rein and her head is flopped to the side and Smith is dragging her along. Why was Star having such trouble walking, you ask? Well, Professor Mangum said the refracture was 3 to 7 days before her death. This means in the footage her leg was fractured and would have had great difficulty walking. She would have also had a fractured skull and refractured ribs at that time. Before her death, Star was in receipt of a significant number of assaults and at the very least was treated inappropriately. You'll see instances where there was no outright violence, but there is mistreatment, such as frightening her awake from a sleep and no care for her afterwards, just filming her. A video from Frankie Smith's phone of Star Hobson where Smith shouts in an attempt to startle her before a muttered laugh. A second clip, Star is asleep on the sofa and there is a loud bang which wakes Star with a jolt followed by a laugh. Mr. McDonald is showing a photo of Star after she came back from the recycling plant with Brookhill with visible bruising on her face. He is now going back to the time Star was exhausted and treated without love. The videos are from June 27th and and the first is from Brookhill's phone. The first shows Star seemingly falling asleep with the food in her mouth, sat with a bowl of food under her head. Gradually her head drops lower and lower as the food falls out of her mouth and her head falls into her bowl of food. The second clip of the same incident from Smith's phone shows they were both filming Star as her head drooped exhausted into a bowl of food while Smith and Brookhill just sat and filmed her. Her head finally settles in the bowl before Brookhill says, "That's what happens when a baby doesn't sleep." A third clip from Brookhill's phone of the same incident shows Star asleep in her bowl of food with Brookhill saying, "That's what happens when a baby don't sleep." There's no love for that child being demonstrated, Mr. McDonald says. There are further disturbing, bizarre pieces of footage we will see now from Brookhill's phone. Some music added as if they were staged events. All the coming videos are from the same day as the incident with the bowl of food. The videos show the same incident of Star falling out of a chair in the living room. The full video has cinematic style music added in slow motion with the caption, "In this moment she realized she had messed up," as Star falls out of the chair onto the floor. A laugh can also be heard as Star falls to the floor. The next video is from September the 20th, 2 days before Star's death. It is from Smith's phone with Smith telling her to get up, and Mr. McDonald said it shows Star in a distressed state. It shows Star laying on the floor crying before Smith says, "Come on, get up," before lifting her by her child reins like a puppet while Star cries and screams, before leaving her in a heap on the floor. Why would a mother film their child in this state, Mr. McDonald says. Statements from the defendants are as follows. On the day of her death, Star was said to have had a cold but had not been on any medication for it. She woke up and had breakfast and was playing with her toys while Smith did housework. Brookhill then came to the flat and gone to the kitchen to make a coffee. At the same time, Smith had gone to the toilet. They both said they heard a loud bang and Brookhill was the first into the room, where she found Star on her back in the room and had gone floppy with her knees to her chest. Brookhill said she tried to put her hand on Star's mouth to feel a blockage before slapping her on the backside to try and revive her. On the third slap she was sick again. She told Smith to get a towel to wolf to her face. Brookhill then did CPR, giving chest compressions and mouth to mouth. That's what she said, chest compressions, remember that? While paramedics were called, Mr. McDonald said. Smith went to the hospital in the ambulance with Star. Brookhill went in her own vehicle. The clinician said there were non-accidental bruising to Star, and damage to her spine was also of concern, so suggested they were not accidentally caused. There was a discussion between the doctor and the defendants. We will hear from the doctor about that. They were arrested a few days after and interviewed by the police. Smith told police she was planning a chill day with Star when Brookhill got to the flat. Star had torn up a signed ticket from Smith's favorite band and Brookhill told her off, but Smith told her not to as she was too young to know what she had done. Brookhill then told her to stand in the corner where she stayed for 2 minutes. Staying there for that is explained because Star was scared of Brookhill. Star often returned with injuries after going out with Brookhill, and Brookhill would take her away for nights even though Smith asked her not to because she did what she wanted. During a FaceTime video, Star fell in Brookhill's car onto the gear stick, but then Brookhill picked her up, did nothing to comfort her. On September the 22nd, they were in the lounge when Brookhill went into the kitchen to make a coffee while Star played. After 2 minutes, Smith needed the toilet and stopped Star from coming with her, but left the living room and toilet door open. Smith said she heard a thud, then heard one of the other children say, "Oh, Star," and came out. She got into the lounge and saw Star laid out making a noise like she'd been winded and wasn't breathing properly. She said her and Brookhill got into the room together and Brookhill slapped her bottom to shock her, but she was sick again. Brookhill refused to hand Star over but accepted she was doing the right thing as Brookhill knew first aid. Smith said they needed an ambulance but Brookhill said they would be fine. Smith was screaming at Brookhill by this point. It was at this point after CPR Brookhill rang 999 but said they didn't need an ambulance but Smith was screaming for one in the background. Smith then said she couldn't understand why Brookhill hadn't asked for an ambulance when the first 999 call connected to police. Brookhill then called for an ambulance. She said she thought Star was going to die at that point, and Brookhill told her to Google shocking a baby while she took her to the kitchen for air. You have to remember these searches were made before the ambulance was called, Mr. McDonald interjects. While Smith was on the phone to the ambulance, she said she was rubbing Star's back. Before the ambulance arrives, Brookhill changed Star's nappy, which Smith said was odd. In the ambulance, Smith rang her mother, but also spoke frequently to Brookhill. After Star's death, Smith said she was numb. Smith said Brookhill was controlling, blocking people in her phone she didn't want Smith to talk to, and got angry when she spoke to certain people. Smith said Brookhill has a good backhand. You will remember the backhand slaps from the recycling plant, Mr. McDonald says, and that she was scared of Brookhill, and when Brookhill hit her, she hit hard. She said Brookhill gave her backhanded slaps and hit her with a brush and a shoe. Smith said she tried to leave Brookhill several times, but Brookhill would not accept it, just coming back the next day like nothing had happened. Smith did add that all the injuries suffered by Star were accidental, with injuries caused by falls, and disagreed with anyone who said different. Smith said she'd never seen Brookhill assault Star, but if she had done it in front of her, she would have called the police and wouldn't be with her if she knew she hurt Star. Next are interviews from Savannah Brookhill by police. She denied murdering Star Hobson. Brookhill said she went to make a coffee in the kitchen and that Smith was there with her. She also had some sips of lager from the fridge. She said she then heard a thud from the living room and found Star on the floor. She said Star looked winded and tried to stand her up, but she was floppy and sat her on the sofa to blow in her face. By then Smith had arrived, but Star had gone into shock and slapped her bottom, after which Star was sick. She took Star to the window to get some air, she said, before putting her back on the floor as her breathing became more shallow. Brookhill then said she held Star's nose and compressed her stomach. Then more sick came out before shaking Star and telling her to get up. She rang 999 and first got police, but then the ambulance, and put Star in a recovery position. Mr. McDonald is interjecting. The first call was to 112, which went through to an operator in Glasgow. Glasgow then contacted West Yorkshire Police regarding the call. Police then ran back to Brookhill. During the call, Brookhill said she was trying to get through to 111, the non-emergency number. Now we are hearing the substantial call, the 999 call to the ambulance service. In the call at 4:04 p.m, Brookhill tells of hearing the bang and finding Star on the floor, and talks through what she said she did to help. Back to the interview with Brookhill. She said at some point she changed Star's nappy and saw the ambulance outside and ran downstairs to let them in, assisting paramedics to get to the flat. She then got in her car and made her way to Bradford Royal Infirmary, and was almost there when Smith rang her and told her Star had been taken to Airedale Hospital and was dead. Brookhill said she had experience with other babies, but as Star got older became hyperactive and would cry to get things and began throwing tantrums. Explaining the bruises Star had, she said they had been caused by falls. Brookhill said as far as she knew, Star had never had any broken bones and didn't know why Star walked with a limp previously. She said sometimes Star would throw herself on the floor and have a tantrum. Brookhill declined to give consent for her social media accounts to be examined. She denied knowing about previous injuries. Star's injuries, which caused her death, was described to her, and she said she didn't know how they were caused. There were texts between Smith and Brookhill just after 2 p.m. on September the 22nd. Brookhill asked what Smith was doing and she replied, sorting this child out. She also sent texts saying pulling my hair out and had enough of it. Brookhill told her to make her stand in the corner. Smith said Star was crying facing the wall, and Brookhill replied, good. These texts cast a powerful light on the dynamics between the defendants and Star. The day after Star's death, Brookhill bought a new phone and made 61 Google searches. They included spleen trauma grading, spleen body part, hemographic stages, severe spleen trauma symptoms, being sick, head injury symptoms. Brooke Hill accepted making these searches but not spleen trauma grading. She denied murdering Star and said she was much loved. She said the injuries may have been caused by the other child falling on her or from when she did CPR. She also gave a long speech about how she loved and cared for Star. That brings to an end of the prosecution's opening of the case.